Dartmouth, never been here before, and super excited to talk a little bit more about the book and engage the audience.
We're very excited to hear your story. It's one that I don't think a lot of Dartmouth students hear about. It's very niche. I would love to know why you decided to write this book.
Yes, so it's very niche, and what took me to write this book were actually just the circumstances of my life. I was living and working in the Republic of Panama, where my father is from, and I was working as an athletic director at an international school, and I was tasked with organizing a basketball tournament. And while doing that, a woman showed up to work the statistics table, and she was also fundraising for her son, who was on the national basketball team under 16s, to go to a tournament in the United States. And I thought it was a worthwhile opportunity because my dad grew up in Panama and he left on an athletic scholarship to come to the US. And so we decided to help him achieve that dream of going to this basketball tournament, where he ended up being recruited by a private high school in the United States. And it took him there. And then I also started my PhD at the same time. And what ended up happening was a lot of horrible things happened to him at the school. And I was just trying to help him. And while we were trying to help him navigate this whole system that he was in, I was also studying and started to research, trying to figure out on Google. And I've realized a lot of young people were just like him, entering into the United States on F-1 student visas with the hopes of playing high school basketball in the US, trying to make it to the next level. And what I realized that this wasn't an isolated incident, that what this young person was experiencing was like many other persons in the US. And I realized that I needed to talk about it. And so that became the origins of the book. And the book talks a lot about our experiences navigating this whole time, but also taking it in the larger context of how trafficking through the student visa process in the US works and is larger than him. So that's what brought me to it, which was real personal, just by meeting people.
And can you please just talk a little bit about the scale of this F-1 visa basketball trafficking that we're experiencing in the US? Because I know it's mainly a high school related incident, because a lot of it is more regulated once you get to college age. So just let our listeners know, how much are we talking, really?
Yeah, so I don't know the scale, and I don't think I know we don't know the scale at which it's happening because we don't have any data about it. But I do know, based on the research, that we do not know how many of the over 80,000 students in the US that are here at the secondary high school level on student visas are participating in sports. But I do know if we have a better grasp of that, we could better understand who's here, and we could check for them to see at what scale this is happening. But we constantly see these stories popping up in the news media, and they might not always directly say human trafficking or basketball trafficking. But what is very evident to me is that we have an issue in sports in the US with our student visas that we're using for international students, and we have to address it. And we also are seeing some of these young people enter into the collegiate ranks, and I don't know if we have enough information to properly provide for them what they need, even when they make it to the college ranks.
It's very tragic. Yeah, I was talking to Dartmouth students, and some of them were like, yeah, no, I have someone staying at my house, or I have these 3 athletes staying at my house with me. And you start to realize how it's happening all across the country, and people don't quite clock what is actually happening. They're like, yeah, no, they're just exchange students. And the scale of the kind of horror that is occurring is kind of goes unnoticed, which is really tragic. I want to ask a little bit about how you think the change in F-1 visas with the new administration has helped, hindered, affected, if it has affected this kind of problem with high school athletes.
That's a great question. I think the current administration of the United States has made it more challenging to be an international student in the US, period.
Yeah.
Regardless of their participation in athletics or not, it's just more challenging because we have, as a country, challenged the student visa as itself as a type of individuals that are coming in. And so the level of scrutiny is way more in adjudicating that visa, which makes it even more challenging for particular athletes, mostly that are coming from the global South, that are already under a lot of scrutiny because of their nationalities, trying to make it to the US with a visa. And then if anything happens, which becomes the most troubling part, it's harder for them to adjudicate their situation, and makes it more challenging than for them to leave the country if they need to, because there's no guarantee that they'll get back in. And especially in this current climate, it makes it seem even less probable that you will get back in. And so sometimes it puts these young people, persons in general, in a hard place to make a decision. And it actually, in my estimation, my research, in my opinion, it actually adds more to what the current administration wants, is what for individuals to leave. But something, when you make it that challenging, it's not easy for somebody to say, let me fix it outside, because if I try to leave and I can't come back in, I lose everything. Yeah. So maybe I'll just stay and try to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, I think really understanding the psyche of these young students, these 16-year-old kids who are just trying to play the sport they love in a country that's unfamiliar to them is very challenging. And also, again, a lot of Dartmouth campus is obviously American citizens. It's hard to imagine that because you start failing in school, or you start failing in sports, or you get tired one week and you perform badly, that could lead to your expulsion and you're just being kicked out of the country. Can you talk a little bit about what you think? I know you had a student athlete stay with you, what you think his personal experience was, or what the more personal aspects are of this cycle of trafficking?
Yes, so for the young guy who was staying with me, his personal experience with trafficking, primarily with the visa type itself, because the F-1 student visa, it doesn't name that it should be used for sport, but in the US we have education-based athletics. And so athletics are embedded in our educational system. And so the visa, because it's used for sport, but it's not naming sports, what ends up happening, largely the grounds for removal can be for educational type of issues, because if you're not passing, you're not eligible to maintain that visa. And so for the kid who was living with me, when the coach and the school decided they didn't want him to be there anymore, largely because his athletic performance, what they did was they manipulated his grades, because the grades were the things that they could justify as why they were removing the visa from him, by virtue of that making him unlawfully present in the country if he didn't leave on his own. Mm-hmm. And so I think for him, like many other young people, the visa, when it's used in a way that is not actually the way people are evaluating them, makes it more challenging. Because they have to navigate a system where it's like, I'm here for play sports, but now you're telling me I'm failing classes, so I can't be here. But I haven't been here enough time. Yeah. I'm not getting the academic support that you said I'm supposed to get. I don't even know what I'm doing, but now I have to leave. And so for him, I think it was a lot of the way it was used. And then he was 16 and 17. He was away from his family. Like him and I, in my family, we were close, but we weren't his mother or his father or his siblings. We were just somebody that could stand there in the time.
It's hard to imagine the displacement at such a young age. And I know your main focus is on South American or Central South American students. Has there been a similar trend coming from Europe or Asia or Africa, just out of curiosity?
Most definitely. So the book is about a Black Panamanian kid and some other kids from Central America. However, the majority of the cases that I've come across that come out in news are mostly kids from West African nations. Yeah. And I think a lot is happening in the continent of Africa in relation to the growth of basketball that is pushing this type of migration. And we can just kind of look at some of the big stars that are playing in the NBA that are international, and many of them have African origins and roots. And so a lot is happening there. Europe is happening, but Europe is a bit different because Europe is very complex. Yeah. I've seen a number of Eastern European young people be caught up in these situations, even some from the United Kingdom, because the basketball system is not the same like it's in France. France is completely different. France has a whole other thing. But also, I talked to a journalist in Paris who reached out to me, and there were some African kids who were French who were having similar experiences in the US, and they were trying to figure out. And so it's not just young people from the Americas. It is a global issue. And I think, if I had to say, I think the African continent is probably where the majority of this exploitation and vulnerability are happening to these youth that are coming here.
I mean, it's scary to think about the future of all these students who are just being like yanked from their homes and brought over here to play high school level sports, which, I don't know, it seems so trivial. It seems just hard on them, on their families. They don't really get a reward. I was wondering do you think this is a problem that has to do with the way that the U.S. school system entrenches sports into its middle school, high school, then onto college level? Or is there something beyond that is really driving this problem?
I think a big part of it is the way the U.S. approaches sport within education.
Yeah.
Because in the sports that I mostly research, which is primarily basketball, I'll stay with basketball. With basketball, the number one feeder into the NBA for the men's side is the NCAA.
Yeah.
And that is this is educational institutions. And we already see in this current moment how much we have had to challenge and change the collegiate athletic system, because it hasn't been amateurism for a while, and now we know it's not amateurism. And so the byproduct of this change also will impact the international student, but we haven't caught up to how do we bring the international student who's coming only on an education visa that's now in this system that we understand isn't amateur the way we said it, we thought it was. How do we catch up there? And so it trickles down from the top, the NBA being the pinnacle, and all of the franchises are in North America, all the way to the feeder system of college, because college, where do we get students from? From high schools. And so a lot of people have to make the decision to come. So it just trickles down from the top.
I was wondering, can you talk a little bit about the reaction to this book? I know it's not a subject which people often study, and it's very interesting, but it challenges the way that the U.S. school system functions to its core. So I was wondering if you've received backlash or people are relatively supportive of the issue. Not to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. Some people have been very supportive of it. I do know that this is an issue that is not a comfortable one to speak about, because sometimes it's in the world of issues that we have, it brings another issue to the table that we were not expecting to having to deal with, and now we have to deal with this thing. And so some state athletic associations that I've been in conversation with here in the United States understand that it's an issue. And some of them have made new regulations to address the issue, but we can't address them all. And so some people are very gung-ho trying to support, and some people, this issue it's too messy to touch because it can really open up a can of worms internally. It's like, we don't want another scandal. We don't want problems. We just want to live our life.
I'm glad you're writing this book, because I feel like it's not something that I would think of as a problem. I know you see student athletes and you're like, wow, they're given this opportunity to play in the U.S., and then we're going to bring them into the collegiate space, and then we can maybe bring them into the NBA space. But nobody ever really talks about the dark side of those who don't make it, of those who just get kind of like ignored or brought here, and then they're like, we don't want them anymore, and sent back to their countries. So it's a very touching subject to talk about. What do you think the solution is? I know that's like, whoa. In a dream world, we would have F-1 visas that allowed kids to have support that they needed. But like, what do you think a more actual tangible solution is to this problem?
Of course, I don't think that the migration is going to stop.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop. It won't. We just see how successful international players are. Why would we stop this thing?
Exactly.
I think one of the recommendations that I feel is tangible and doable is just add a category to the application. Is this student coming to play sport in the United States? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Because from that, we can at least have an idea of how many kids or young people are in the country to participate in education-based athletics. So in the case we ever need to figure out where they are and how they could possibly move it, at least we'll know what direction and to go.
Exactly.
And so other than that, I think we literally would need an act of Congress to change the visa itself. But just adding that one thing,
box.
at least we can have a sense of who's here.
The numbers.
And I think that's like really one low-hanging fruit that we could probably just like get that on the board
Just
right
tell
now.
them, we just need this one thing. Yeah, I know it's hard, obviously, to estimate numbers. It's hard to estimate locations. You were in Texas, I believe. You were living in Texas when you had Tito, was his name? Yes, staying with you. Where do you, is this a nationwide problem? Do you think it's centralized in specific areas? Again, knowing that the data is hard to find because we just don't have numbers relating specifically to this. An estimate.
Don't have numbers, but I know it's nationwide, and I'll say it's nationwide because the majority of the cases begin or are centered at private schools and many prep academies. And so we have basketball prep academies all over the country now.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to name any because I don't want people to feel like I'm implicating those, but they're popping up all over the country. Some of them are well known.
Yeah.
Some of them have made a name for themselves in recent years. Some of them have been established for a while. And some of them are just being opened up by people who, in truth, don't have any business opening up a school and trying to do anything with kids because they don't have the resource to education or the level of responsibility to be in a situation of taking care of kids. And they open up these schools across the nation. And I mean, there's a lot of those schools, and many of these top prep schools have international players, and many of these fly-by-night prep schools have international players, and I don't know how many are here because we just don't know.
I can imagine. I was wondering, I know you've written a book. You're doing a lot of publicity, sharing this book with the world, which is very important. What are your next steps? What's the future hold for you? Is this another book, and more? I know you're still interested, obviously, still interested in this topic, still researching. What do you think? What do you want to do next?
That's the hardest question I've been asked today.
I agree. I've been asked every day. They're like, "What internship are you getting?" I was like, "What? This is too much."
Wow.
Where can we find you next?
I know I need to stay in this work.
Yeah.
And it's been easy for me to make every excuse in the world of why I shouldn't continue because of the challenges that exist, and there could be something easier. But I know I was called here for the reason to take it on. And so for me, next is continuing to do the work, trying to actually get more people on board to make make changes. And I want, and the power that I actually see is actually with a lot of my students, because a lot of the younger generation that are wanting to work in sport that I'm encountering, they want to know the issues that are going on. And my hope is that if I can educate them and expose them to what's going on, that when they get into these positions, they'll be more aware and can take action. So I have to continue staying in the work. Yes, I'll continue researching, continue writing. Yes. And other things.
Glad to hear it. I think it's important to have somebody advocating for these students who just kind of go unnoticed for the most part. But that was Javier